The other classes. Okay, and now we're live. So welcome to class today. We have our new friend Rafael from Brazil, which is fantastic. Thank you. He said he's watched some of our other classes, and that's great, and he wants to join. So wonderful. Today, our main topic is going to be about the word entrepreneur, which is actually a French word that the English have stolen. We seem to do that with many words in the English language. So it might be a little difficult to pronounce, difficult to spell as well. Entrepreneur is the word. Do you know what that means, Rafael?
I think it's a businessman. It's someone who is able to do business, or maybe set up a company and set up a business endeavor in order to gain profits and something like this.
Good. Yeah, well, that's perfect. So that's a great explanation. I want to say hi to Ken. Ken, we're talking about being an entrepreneur today. And this is our new friend, Rafael, who's from Brazil.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I know him.
Oh, you do? Well,
Definitely.
that's
Hello,
great.
Ken.
Yes. Hello, hello, Rafael.
So I'm the one that doesn't know anybody today except for Ken. Okay. No, that's fine. So Rafael did a perfect job in explaining what an entrepreneur is. It's someone who starts a business, company, something. Okay. So what I have for us today is a little. We have a reading to look at, which has some good words here. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Let me just go ahead and share my screen in a second when this is. Here it is. Okay. And share. Perfect. All right. So let me try and make this a little bit bigger. And that's a little bit too big, but we might be able to move it over, and no. So I'm going to get a tiny bit smaller here, and we should be able to see this. You guys can see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe a little bit small, but I think it's fine. So what we'll do is maybe I'll have Ken read the first paragraph, well, the first line, and then Rafa, you can read the other two smaller paragraphs, okay? We'll try and do things as even as possible. So whenever you're ready, Ken, you can just start reading, okay? This is about an entrepreneur.
Okay. Richard Branson, an famously successful entrepreneur born in the 50s, first started putting his business venture ideas into practice at the age of 16. The first business he set up was a magazine called Student. He quit school to drum up some business, but it turned out to be a failure. However, learning from mistake is a part of life, so Branson persevered and decided to start up something that would be inconvenient and cheaper for music lovers, Virgin Records. What started out as a small order in business soon became the go-to place to buy discount records. It was a revolution for most people at the time, and it made a killing.
Okay, good. So Rafael, before you start, I just like to talk about some of these words that we see in this paragraph so everything makes sense before we continue. Okay. So the highlighted words or the bold words in this case are probably the most important, which we'll work with later. But I would like to talk about those again so we understand everything before we continue. So drum up. Do either of you know what drum up means? If it's due to the context or if you've heard this before, drum up.
Just about the context, I believe.
Yeah, so what do you understand about drum up?
Sounds like to start.
Good. Well, I think that's a good explanation. Very short, obviously, that's perfectly fine to drum up, to start, to think about maybe. So something like that. That's perfect. I think B, it's what started out as a small mail order business. So this is a little bit simple. I think it's just it started out. You can have in there or not. We don't need the word out in this case. Started as or started out as. Okay. C is also a very specific word or words, I would say. A go-to place. What do you think this means? A go-to place. Maybe Ken, do you want to?
Maybe commonplace,
A
popular
common
place.
place? Popular? Okay. Raphael, do you have a different explanation for this?
No, I believe it's quite similar. I don't have anything aside.
Yeah. All right, so I would agree with the word popular is a good word to use for that. And then in D, it says made a killing. Do you have any idea what made a killing is?
It worked. They achieved profits, or they got in the spotlight, or maybe just become famous, or something like that.
Okay. Yes, and more no than yes, but not a bad idea. Ken, do you have any idea what made a killing means?
Maybe it overwhelms other record stores, something like that.
Well, this has to do with money. So
Okay.
made a killing is make a lot of money.
Okay.
Okay, so it was a go-to place to buy discount records, and then it was a revolution, and it made a killing, made lots of money. Okay, any other specific questions about anything in here that you want to talk about before we have Raphael read the second part here?
May I replace started out as by started over as a small male? I don't know.
Well, to start over means to do it again. So if you start something over, it's start from scratch or start from zero, to basically do it again. So that would mean if it what started over as a small mail order business would mean that he had already tried and maybe it didn't work out, or it did, but we're not really sure. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, well, if there aren't any other questions here, Raphael, why don't you read the other two paragraphs for us, okay?
Okay. After a fair few years of ups and downs, prison sentences, and other money-making schemes, Branson started something that would send him literally flying. In 1984, he embarked upon one of his biggest challenges to date, Virgin Atlantic Airlines. People were impressed by the luxurious services and products Branson had included on board. In-flight messages, video screens, and free ice cream during films. Not long after the rise in the sky, around 1991, did British Airways start putting pressure on Branson. They did their very best to try and give him out of the market. On top of terrorist attack fears, this proved a tough time for Branson, having to say at least a temporary goodbye to the short-lived popularity of his airline.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I was on the other page. And for me, in the Hangout, I can't see the last paragraph. So what I'll do is go ahead and read the last paragraph here for everyone. Okay, just in case you can't see it. So, but true form Branson preserved, waited for the fear to pass and fought British Airways at their own battle. He had no other option but to sell his much-loved music company. This was a good move on his part, as he could now buy Virgin Atlantic outright. Okay, so now let's look at any other questions here. Again, we do have those bold words, which we'll take a look at too. But any questions here?
What up and downs prison sentences? Which means he became a prisoner?
Right. Well, so ups and downs are good times and bad times. Okay. So, and then it says prison sentences, which means yes, he was sentenced or he went to prison.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the money-making schemes. Maybe money-making scheme could be illegal. That's why.
Exactly. Something like that could have happened. Maybe he didn't pay his taxes, which is a pretty common thing. Things like that. Yeah. I mean, that's what I could imagine if someone is, if someone has a business, you know, you're not paying your taxes, you're not paying something that you should normally. Okay. So good. Other questions? No, it doesn't really sound like it. Well, money-making schemes is a little bit kind of easy as well, I would say. But the word schemes, what can someone describe that for me?
Corruption, or maybe bribery, or something related with money deviation. Um,
Well,
example,
schemes,
not paying taxes, or maybe just something like that.
it doesn't have to be negative. A scheme is basically just a plan. And so his money-making plan, there's another word for it, but his ideas on how to make money, or you know, his idea, his plan. I can't think of any other words. So it doesn't have to be negative. Maybe it could be, but in this case I don't think it is. So just his way of making money. What about embarked upon? Embarked. Can a plan or a system? Yeah.
Maybe appeared.
Appeared. Okay. Sure. Again, yes and no. There's a better word I think we can use. Something that's we can substitute for the word embark. Nothing? Well, yes, Raphael.
Joined.
Joined. Not really. Embarked is more start. So if I embark on a new adventure, I'm starting it. This is something new. Okay, to launch. Sure. I think start is probably the best word here. Okay. And then let's see. G says drive him out of the market. This could be pretty self-explanatory. What do we think this means? G, drive him out of the market.
To take him out, to beat him, or maybe just to get him out of the business.
Exactly, yeah. They wanted to not have him in the business as competition anymore, so they wanted to drive him out. To drive someone out means basically force them out. Okay? So good. And then it says buy outright in the last one here, H. Good move on his part, as he could now buy Virgin Atlantic outright. What does that mean?
It means of the I don't know, their shares of stock, buying the maybe I don't know.
Okay. I don't think it necessarily has to be stock. In this case specifically, they're just talking about the businesses. So basically, you could just buy the business and that's it. Maybe he didn't have to pay for a loan or anything like that. Maybe he had so much money, he could just buy it. The whole company. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. So in general, why don't one of you explain to me what we've just read in general, kind of like a summary for this. Move this, oops. Like that, it looks like we can see the majority of it. Ken, do you want to help us with the summary? Just in general, what are they talking about here?
Branson is a successful entrepreneur born in 50s Britain, and he started. First, he set up the magazine, and then he quit the school for starting up the business. Branson Record, which is very famous record label nowadays, but he became a prisoner because of his money-making scheme. However, he maybe after that he launched a new business, I think, Virgin Airlines. So, and then I couldn't get the last part because he didn't own the Virgin Airline from the beginning. He bought Virgin Airline.
He bought. Mm-hmm.
Really? Okay. I couldn't get this part. Why? He started Virgin Airline, but he bought Virgin Airline again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I couldn't get this part.
Okay, well, is it the third paragraph or the last paragraph?
Yeah, maybe third paragraph.
Okay.
I mean, not
well,
third and fourth. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Okay. Well, if we look at the second paragraph, this is where, he had his ups and downs, blah, blah, blah. Then he started one of his biggest challenges, the airline. Okay. People were impressed, blah, 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 with everything that they had. Okay. After this started around 91, British Airways were, they were in competition. Let's put it like that. Okay. They tried to get Branson, out of the market so British Airways could be the best of the best. A terrorist attack fears, that's not good. It was difficult for Branson to compete with to compete with the British Airways company. Having to say at least a temporary goodbye. Okay, so he said goodbye to his company. Means that he stopped. It says having to say at least a temporary goodbye to the short-lived popularity of his airline. Maybe there was so much competition, British Airways had cheaper flights, etc. Who knows? Okay, but Branson stopped. Then, after all of this went away, it says waited for the fear to pass. He fought British Airways at their own battle. So again, they're in competition. They're fighting. And then he had no other option but to sell his much-loved music company. So now he's selling Virgin Records. And this is probably to support his business with Virgin Atlantic.
I see.
Okay. So by selling Virgin Records, he could buy Virgin Atlantic, all of it, without having, like I said, a loan or anything like that.
Okay.
Good? Does that make sense now?
Yeah, maybe once he left sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so he was, in the airline business, got out. Yeah, Rafael?
Please, could you, I didn't understand the statement, but true to form, Branson, is this an expression? I didn't understand that.
But true to form, this I would say is, how would I explain this? That's the way he would do things. I mean, he temporarily said goodbye, so then he went back. He waited for things to kind of calm down. But true to form, now I really don't know how to say this. True to form. To form would be the way he is. Okay, true to form, the idioms. Here we go. Following the usual pattern. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. If someone tries and gets you out of a company or, out of this competition, you're going to try and get back into it. And that's exactly what he did. He just waited a while until things calmed down, and then he bought Virgin Atlantic. Does that help?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good. Well, it looks like we can go to the next slide here. Here we go. Okay, so here we go with basically things that we've talked about, but now we can look at them a little differently and see if you can think of some sentences. All right. So it says, what were the ups and downs of Richard Branson's career? So do you remember, or should I put the? I'll put this back for you. Here we go. So what are his ups and downs? Rafael, did you want to answer this one?
Okay, let me see. Are there the good moments and bad moments? There are moments of thriving. There are thriving moments, and there are bad moments. There are moments of
Exactly.
difficulties.
Yeah, is there anything specific that you want to mention?
So you must be specific
From
about
this?
what his life, his career.
Well, yeah, but the ups and downs. For example, he probably had an up when he started Virgin Records, or even from the magazine. That was something exciting for him. Then he had some negative things that happened. For example, he went to prison, a prison sentence. So he was in prison for a while. But then, he started again with this whole airline business. So he had his ups and downs throughout his life. So that's what they're talking about. And another one is that he made a killing, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Okay, so those are the ups and downs in his life. And now what we'll talk about are some of these phrasal verbs and expressions, okay? So we talked about drum up. So basically this means do you know the word brainstorm? Let me type it in here. To brainstorm. It means to think about something. I have to drum up some ideas about a new store that I want to open, for example. Okay, so you have to drum up some ideas. You have to think about them. You have to brainstorm. Okay. Any questions with this phrasal verb? It doesn't sound like it. What about the word drum? Just the word drum. Do we understand that?
Yeah, like when the launch starts something, like the sound drum maybe came from such sound, I think.
Okay, sure, yeah. So drums, you normally hear at the beginning of a song when they first start, to kind of maybe go 1, 2, 3, and they, what is it? Hit the drumsticks together. Drums are those big things at the back of a band that make a lot of noise. So again, phrasal verbs and expressions, which we'll actually look at idioms on Wednesday. And those are basically things that, you know the words, but it doesn't make sense probably if you look at it literally, okay? And unfortunately, this is one of those. Just as we talked about started out as, to start as, a small mailing company, it's basically the same thing. In some cases, we use prepositions and other times we don't. Any questions here with start out as?
So as is optional. Started out, or started out as. It's optional.
Well, I think it kind of depends because, for example, I started out working in a high school. So I'm not using as in this case. This is when we're talking about professions. Okay. For example, some businesses can start out as a hobby.
Yeah.
You're comparing it to something. So that as is in the kind of comparative. Okay?
Okay.
Any other questions here, Rafael?
Just to clarify, you mentioned so start out is to start out just like a comparison. You start out as something, so you are comparing the way you are starting with someone else. Is that right?
Right. Well, with the word as, yes. To start out working in a low rank of the business, for example, you're not comparing, you're just saying, I'm going to start at the lowest position and then work my way up. You can say, I started out as a student and then went to a teacher. So in that case, you're comparing yourself to a student. You can say, I started as a student and worked my way up, for example. So in this case, it's like the word, it's like sit and sit down, or stand up. We don't need the prepositions at the end, but we just say them probably to add more emphasis. Okay? Does that help? Any other questions about start out? I know it is quite confusing. Phrasal verbs are terribly confusing anyway.
No. Okay.
Yes? No? Okay. Well, great then. So we'll go to C. So like Ken said before, something popular. So a go-to place, for example, that ice cream place has, it's a, well, no. I'm trying to think here how I can word this. Go-to place. It's a go-to place for ice cream. Popular. It's a great place to go. Have you heard of this before? A go-to place? This could be a go-to place for learning English, for example.
Yes, I've heard it. It's quite normal.
Okay. No, that's good. I mean, it just depends you know, what you've been exposed to with the English language and things. So that's good. And made a killing, we talked about, this means to make a lot of money. So Ken, you've been pretty quiet. Can you think of a sentence with made a killing?
Made a killing. Kind of smartphone made a killing on the market.
In the market, I would say, yeah. I think that's great. Whoever invented mobile phones made a killing. That's perfect. Rafael, can you think of a sentence with go-to place? Because I really like that one. Go-to place.
The new grocery store it's a go-to place for most children.
Okay, perfect. Yep, so there's maybe something fun for them there, and that's good. Making schemes is the next one that we have here. And as we talked about before, it's not necessarily, a scheme is not negative. It just means a plan. So money-making schemes. So basically, you're planning out how you can make money. And then the other one is embarked upon. That is definitely with start, for example. Okay, so embarked upon. Have you seen the preposition upon before?
Yes.
And what can you tell me about it?
Upon, I don't know, maybe, but it's common, word in English. Upon something. Yeah, I don't know if that means upon, maybe. I don't know.
Upon, it has a similar meaning as something else. Raphael, can you help us out with that? What else? What's a substitute for the word upon?
Over, maybe.
Embarked over. No, I would say the word on. O-N. Embarked on. So it's actually kind of there. You just have to take out the U-P before it. Okay, so when we say upon is a little bit more formal, probably more Old English. we will see this in like basic phrases. For example, once upon a time is the beginning of like a fairy tale or a story, you know, a long time ago. Okay. Drive him out of the market. So we did see this before. And we did have a really good explanation for this. So drive him out was to force him out of the market. So they, you know, didn't want any more competition. And then to buy outright is to buy everything. Okay. Any questions here? If you want, I can go back to the text and we can talk about any other questions that you might have. Or if not, we have two options here. We can talk about number 3 where it says tell your partner or group or teacher about a successful famous person and try to use the new vocabulary. Or we can do a role play between the two of you about starting your own business, maybe together, so you both can be entrepreneurs. Or maybe one is a father, the other is a son, and the son is telling their father about a business they want to start up. So any ideas? Do you have any preferences?
I prefer monologue.
A monologue. Okay, that's perfect.
I'm not good at communication.
No problem, Ken. So do you want to start the monologue? And do you know anyone who's an entrepreneur or anything about someone who's famous?
Yes, I have.
Would you like to explain it about that person?
Yes, very famous person, another entrepreneur in America. You know, maybe same generation as Richard Branson, you know, Steve Jobs, and also the Microsoft Bill Gates. But Steve Jobs' case is more dramatic, I think, for many people. At first, he started business, his own garage. When after he dropped out of school, I forgot it. Anyway, he started run the business. That's a very small business at the garage. And then, you know, computer boom came, personal computer boom came, and the Apple became a bigger company, bigger and bigger. But the big rival was Microsoft. And anyway, Apple developed on their way, and it differentiated from Microsoft strategy or PC. However, his personality character is not somewhat much to the maybe to communicate to the employees or his company staff or stockholders. So he hired his own company. He was hired by his own company actually, and then he moved to Pixel. It's a kind of also the startup, maybe new area of business of computer graphic business. So, and he made animation there, and some animations became a big hit. So he became successful as in an animation company, and then at the same time, Apple suffered from the gain of the profit. So Apple staff and maybe stockholders ask Steve come back to the Apple, and he agreed with that. And after he returned to Apple, he devised the business style, also the item they are selling. He focused on the very specific item, stylish Macintosh, and then he released a very revolutionary thing, iPod, and iPod developed to smartphone or iPad. That was the story of him.
Well, very good. So yeah, you do know a little bit about entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I watched several movies about this. Also
Well, that's perfect then. Good. Well, Rafael, did you want to talk about a famous entrepreneur that you know about? Maybe someone from Brazil or anyone else?
Well, I don't much. I don't know many entrepreneurs and successful people, but I understand. Uh, I was reading a little bit about the story of Walt Disney, in which he started his way to believe that children at his age deserve a more uh, uh, when he was were with his daughters, realized that children at that time wasn't able to have a fun place to go and to spend time. So I believe he started out this idea. He started to realize that there's a good idea for a business, and in which he could set up a place in which those families could hang out together and spend the whole day, their whole weekends, and having fun and living in a I don't know, in an environment of magic and beauties. So I believe it's he tried to to create this sparks and this not only the parks but also the characters in which we gave some sort of portrait or character to the park and to the entrepreneurship he was settling. And I remember that at least the first years was kind of difficult because uh, he didn't have much experience with money making schemes, but he tried to do. And at least, and I remember that at least in the beginning, it was a little bit difficult. But as the time went by, he was able to set his business, and he was able to thrive. And by means of a very extensive propaganda and several uh, he also take place in the movie industry, so this helped him a lot in expanding their businesses all over the world because he became quite famous, and this certainly helped to build. It certainly helped him to build uh, his fortune and fame, I think.
Okay. Well, I definitely agree. And so I'm going to actually stop screen sharing so you can see me again. Actually, I was thinking about talking about Walt Disney, and so you stole my great idea, which is perfectly fine. But if you think about it, Walt Disney has created not just, for example, these theme parks, but he's created all of these Disney movies, these characters. It's probably where the saying "Once upon a time" came from. So he started everything, and you think about how many jobs are in the world because of him. All the books, the movies, producers, um, cartoonists, the actors at Disneyland and Disney World. There's in California and Florida in the United States. There's a Disneyland and a Disney World, and I think Disneyland's in Florida. I think I was never really sure, but I went there many years ago, and it just brings you happiness in this fairy tale life. And so he's created dreams, and so I think that's really great. Plus, I know there's one in Paris, and I don't know. Ken, is there one in Japan that you know of, or maybe in China somewhere
All
near
kind of
you?
startup business. Yeah, actually one case is actually IT business. The company called SoftBank. The uh, the his the president is how can I say? Actually, ADSL. At first, he started as a business as online banking, and then he moved to the internet career. At that time, Japanese ADSL price is the highest in the world, but that his campaign made it the lowest in the world. So ADSL spread around the nation, and also his company SoftBank became very popular company as an internet career. He got a lot of money for that, and then he bought Yahoo, Japanese Yahoo. Also, he bought my my city's franchise baseball team. So the team became strong because they can team could get a good player for maybe because he got a lot of profit from internet IT
Mm-hmm.
business. Yeah. Also now he and that internet business shift to the mobile phone or also smartphone business, and he bought maybe American mobile phone carrier, also Chinese maybe something maybe internet related company. So kind of nowadays, especially IT industry is very changeable. They need to invest our new business. Yeah, next. That's
Mm-hmm.
so that's risky, but maybe they have to do that probably.
Well, and I think you're
Yes.
absolutely right. It's always what's next, and I think everything online is going to be like the next big thing. And as you can see, we've already started with English online and learning. I think it's endless. To start an online
Right.
company or bloggers. I don't really like to read that much, but and I don't know, bloggers to me are like confusing because I think it's great for people to understand what they're doing, things like that, but they actually make money off of it too. And I'm thinking, well,
Yeah.
how there's so many in the world. And so it definitely depends on what your aim is and what companies and advertisements and things like that. But I think the online world there are endless opportunities to become an entrepreneur, right at your own home. I'm at my home right now. So it's just that simple. So I think that's wonderful. And, people can be inspiring. There's a woman in the United States called Oprah Winfrey. Had a terrible, terrible upbringing. I think she was abused as a child. She had a child at 14. Just went through all of this stuff, got fired from one of her first television jobs, I think. I think that's her, don't quote me. Now she's one of the most influential women in the world, probably in the United States. And she has a talk show and she, helps people and just very influential, but you have to have these huge down moments in your life and then later you have to have these up moments. And when you can financially help others, I know with the Hurricane Harvey that Taylor Swift had sent a whole bunch of money to the food bank in Texas, things like that. If you have money, you can be influential when you need it and help out. So I think that's wonderful. And we'll see what happens in Florida here very shortly once the storm passes. So good. Well, perfect. Any other comments about entrepreneurs? I mean, have you started about thinking? Let me go back. Have you ever started thinking about starting your own business or embarking on a new journey?
Not yet. I unfortunately,
Okay.
unfortunately, economic situation in my country is not that encouraging right
Stable?
now. But
Okay. Yeah.
okay, but I hope I hope things will go better in the near future, so could think something like that. I think.
Definitely. Right now is then take advantage of this time and think really well about all of this and think what can go wrong and ask other people because everyone will have a different opinion and might ask different questions, things like that. So, I mean, maybe not tell people all of your plan, but definitely maybe one day you'll be ready to start. Ken, any entrepreneurship for you?
I think I don't have a talent for them.
Oh,
But
well,
yeah.
I'm sure you have
But yeah.
something. That's okay. Some people are more followers than they are leaders, which is fine. We need both in the world. So,
But anyway, yeah, as you said, nowadays internet gave a lot of opportunity. Like nowadays some YouTubers made a huge amount of profit. Popular YouTuber only, but writing blog, posting video, or live broadcasting site. Yeah, some top people getting a lot of profit from the activities on the internet.
absolutely. Well, perfect. Well, good. Well, hopefully this class can inspire some people to become entrepreneurs. Like it said in the text, like I mentioned, people have their ups and downs in life, and it's all to learn. So take those bad moments, turn them into good moments, or at least learning moments, and then you can become a great entrepreneur. So with that, we're just about finished for today. We do have, like I said, on Wednesday, we have a class about idioms, and I'm trying to find different idioms that maybe aren't so common. I'm pretty sure some of the ones I have you've heard of, which is perfectly fine, but there are some other ones that you probably haven't. So it should be a pretty good class. What I have is the idiom, a sentence, and then the meaning. Okay, so I'm hoping that just by seeing the idiom, you can kind of understand with the sentence that I have, the meaning, and then we'll just double check that once we talk about each one. Okay, so any other questions here?
No, but how about Spain? Come back to Spain.
Oh
Coming
yeah,
back.
okay. The trip was fine. No big problems. So pretty good. I basically finished the class the other day. Within 45 minutes, I was in my friend's car and she was driving me to the airport. I did have to go they dropped me off at one terminal, had to go to the next, and then they told me, nope, you arrive here with international flights, but you fly out of a different one. So I had to change terminals, but that was probably the biggest problem. But apart from that, everything went really well. Thanks, Ken, for asking. I forgot that I had come back. So I was very excited to be here. Good.
Right.
Well, thanks, Ken. Thanks. And Rafael, any final comment?
No, thanks for the class. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Well, on Wednesday, the class starts an hour after now. Okay, so it's 9 o'clock your time now. So at 10 o'clock, we will have the class on Wednesday. And this is for Brazil, okay? For Japan, it's obviously a lot later than that. So.
Yes.
Perfect. Well,
Okay.
good. Wonderful. Well, yeah, normal's back to normal for now. So thanks, guys, for coming. And hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday for idioms. That's always a lot of fun.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.